Good morning. Yo. Yo. Hey, Sakis. Be very cautious of today. I am approaching this with great caution. This spike base looks like the early makings of this accumulation in here. We've just swept the high out. If we decide to really get going to the downside, which might not happen initially. We've got news at 10. So extremely cautious of what's going on here. You see this, the counter argument to it. We've respected the beautiful intermediate time frame wombo here. Strong move out. We've then got our wombo here. And you could argue actually with this one that if we drew it from the low itself, it's actually a lot more accurate, and I think that's fair. I think that's fair. But when you see something like this, you have pretty strong conviction. You see something here, like it had its opportunity here to sell off and it failed, right? So now we're looking at this high. This not being part of structure, this being inside of a range of this candle, right? Failing lower, failing higher first, then failing lower, generating liquidity, generating a lot of liquidity. I think that our last valid swing on their 15, our intermediate time frame is at 41. But I use that with a pretty strong word of caution because should we actually confirm failure here, whether that fails now, whether that fails and we kind of chop around in here before the manipulation happens and this ends up being a 4-hour candle closing up here that then puts in a strong high, which I think is a valid theory, then we're going down to here. We've got our impulse, we've got our this low of this candle doesn't really have much. I think there's a lot of liquidity underneath that. Certainly underneath this low here, which is my main target should we really start to unload off of a higher time frame. And that'll look like it'll respect this area at the end of the day, which could look violent, could look not. We'll see. But I'm being very cautious with this. This isn't what I want to see out of a top. I would want to see something a little bit more, so I think we're going to go a little bit higher, if only to have our closure for news at 10 o'clock. But we're also seeing inability to trade or unwillingness to trade lower, at least so far, despite some pretty strong selling pressure. Right, 20-point sell-off, bang. And interestingly, right, 540, so only about a 50-point range from 4 a.m. Not the London sessions we were expecting. Not the London sessions we were expecting, right? So yes, objective hit. Until then, essentially looking at intermediate time frame retracements and the lower time frame facilitating that. No real opportunity to get involved after this. You could argue this failure here at 931, perhaps, but not really my jam. Not really my jam. I thought this was Whelan's stream. Hey, Sean. Hey, buddy. Yeah, you know what? I don't think I've even hopped into a Whelan stream. I've seen his videos, like his shorts, but I don't think I've hopped in. Very cautious of longs. And I mean, we have other justifications for that as well, right? But I just don't put a lot into, unless they are really gonna fail this. And that's going to be very nasty if this candle closes bearish and they really decide to go. You know, we've got a lot to clean up. We've got no structure on a higher time frame at all until this zone here. None. Right? We've got our SNDR. And that's basically it. I would expect a bounce from here for sure, but like this is a straight shot to this low. So if she wants to go, she's not going to need any introduction today. We're seeing a little bit of eagerness already. So if you are aggressive and you're taking something like this, you're obviously looking quite beautiful. This low would have been your first target, right? And that that would probably be my main target, at least right now. There's a strong possibility that this this just takes out the internal, and then we actually do get our 4-hour closure up here, which would then allow for manipulation on the next 4-hour candle, which would really unload things. I think that's fair. But given a candle like this, if this candle gives significant follow through, right? Like I've ideally wanted a closure underneath there, but it's still not invalid to be holding your short. You definitely don't want a body closure above this, right? We want attempts to rally that fail as we pick up steam on a higher time frame delivery. And then what you're looking at is ideally ideally we get a body closure underneath this, right? I think that you would get something maybe like this, and then you get your intermediate time frame push. You just need to see what the 10 a.m. news does. Really nice reaction so far. Yes, sweeping, yes, failing, but failing above your last structural bear bar in this move. I'm likely going to be hands off until it makes a signature that I can risk off of. I can't go long in here off of the failure higher on the higher time frame, despite my personal view that we're going to go higher and close up there before the manipulation happens. But that opinion is not supported by what price is doing right now. Let me get this on. Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum. What do we got? Do we have anything in here? I don't think we do. We're pretty much in our pocket right now, but it generated nothing. So we might get our bounce from here. I'm just going to be hands off personally. I think at minimum we take this low. At minimum. But that's nothing for me. Nothing for me. If it goes from here, I'm not long. Despite it being in a nice area to look at. Morning, Tim. Who's coming to the marble races later? That's what I want to know. Who wants to see me finally win one? My goodness. I'd settle for a top 5. I don't think I've had a top 5 yet. Marble races will be right at market close. That's why I'm a member. Came for the education, but I stayed for something else. That's a nice little change in order flow, actually. I'll put you in there for in spirit, Dennis. I'd hate for you to be interested in what your marble's doing while you're on the ladder working, man. Cheers. So strong, sideways. This expectation was this liquidity here. Instead, we've kind of got held up. I'm still not wild about this, despite it being a sign of strength here. You'll notice this isn't like I don't consider what's going on in here. You've got, sure, you can look at it as valid lows, valid highs, but in reality, what you're looking at is range-bound PA. Market's accumulating as it stands right now. Nasty 5-minute candle, nasty 15-minute candle, but no follow through. Got a lot of time to work with this one as our higher time frame decides whereabouts it wants to close. You could argue that it's already decided that at midnight last night, depending on your personal viewpoints of how the algorithms work, or if there is such a thing. But I think we can all agree that algorithm or not, it's much higher probability and better trading to wait for some sort of signature in price to tell us whereabouts it wants to go. There's going to be a lot of action today, especially with red folder news. Right now we're in a 30-point range after the open, which will lead to expansion. The question is, will it have manipulation higher first and then down, or not? Was it at 8:30? I thought it was at 10 this morning. Oh, 10 was yesterday. For some reason, I was reading Wednesday. Idiota. I took one look at the range and looked at indecision, so I was going, oh, news at 10, I guess. Would definitely be staying out of the middle of this, despite how it's grinding higher. We are looking at this high at 51.50. You could argue you've got your pocket sort of sitting in here. But if I'm honest with you, like, yeah, you probably could take these scalps down to the 23.6, which aligns with the pocket that we've got here, right? And then that, people will look to fail both sides until it stops working. I think that's fair. But I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to wait. Hey, Eduardo. You guys not hear me? Weird. Okay. Eduardo give me a heart attack, man. Bum, 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 bum. Right, so taking this low here, I don't think there's a little imbalance in there. 28 and 28 is no imbalance. You got a little volume gap here maybe. To me, this is unclear. We don't have a change in order flow. Well, I suppose you could argue there's a little change in order flow in here. Given the context, I'm not as inclined to be looking at that given the intermediate time frame range. I think it's valid if you're looking at this for a scalp. I'm risk off of longs because of everything we talked about with the failure here. I don't want to get caught in this for that exact reason. Right, so this is your 9:50 time. Right, if we decide to go from here, this is pretty much how I would expect that to happen. This is pretty much how I would expect that to happen. Hey, Jose, what's up, buddy? Morning, drama. These juicy lows are here at 506. I don't think it's done yet. I lean very heavily on the 5 minute when I'm expecting higher time frame movement. That keeps me out of getting head fakes on the 1 minute reversals. Right. Now we've got 9 minutes. This will be nasty if it fails here and then takes this high. I think that's lower probability than us trading back in and going, personally. But I'm sitting on my hands for right now. Right? The only area I would consider buying from will be 492. There's your 506. Did it take it? Not yet. Not yet. Right into our pocket. Beautiful. Wanted that liquidity. Didn't get any inducement. So just watching. If this closes bullish and then manipulates lower and fails, you might get a movement back up into here. And we use inducement to increase our probabilities. Right? But all this is your second distribution down from this high. Right? So we would expect violence. Right? So If we fail above this 2050, right, you've got this up here at 30. If that gets respected, we continue lower probably to here. We'll see. No imbalance. Possibly one on the 15-minute, but we talk about narrative and price expectations. It actually gives a sense of peace. If you guys are finding that your trading is not at peace and you're fighting the market half the time you're not, half the time you are, it's because you're not at peace with your system. Right? If this happens and this happens, then I attack the market. And that clarity in simplicity, right? That actually gives clarity of decision making as well. Right? I'm fine missing this move if that didn't give me what I wanted. Equivalently, if this runs here, I'm also fine missing that. I'm expecting below here. And then by extension below this. Based off of the higher time frame delivery that's happened here. I do expect it to trade back into this, whether it fails or not. Right? So sideways, if we sweep and fail underneath this, you might get your move out of here. You might also get it all the way down here. Either way, I'm looking to take a trade back up into that zone. Should it offer an opportunity. Very cautious of this, but I think that's valid. Right? And until this gets taken, I'm not interested. You can base here all it likes. That might have been the sweep of these equal lows, and it could go from here. Not really what I wanted to see. I'm looking at this inability, right? I would expect something a little bit more violent so far. So far I'm not getting it. So I think trading back into this is fair. But I can understand if you're only looking at shorts or you're waiting for something else. Which fib? This one here or this one? There goes your 506s. The top one, this one. That's our 5 minute from the from this zone. Now that should actually probably be up, maybe even up here now, right? But basically I'm looking at these lows. We've swept underneath. We haven't really got anything we wanted yet. We'll see what this gives here. Right? If we sweep this out, then aggressive long at 92. I still think that I'd still be shocked if we didn't trade at least a little bit higher and then give ourselves a trade back into this area of interest, personally. Looks like we're going to create a 15-minute imbalance, which is lovely. Be interesting to see if we take these lows out first. Right? This being the last one at 500 that would expect to be a liquidity target. And we'll see what this this gives in here. Hey David, what's going on? Afternoon. We got 2 minutes till 7 a.m. 10 a.m. for you Eastern folks. Some nice inducement here. If we drop in and fail, then the target would be 28. And I am interested in taking a long here, but this is a little bit violent. Right, looking at this nasty business. Right, the challenge with this here, this could actually be, well, you know, I'm actually going to be a little bit more conservative and look at this movement inside of this consolidation here. Right, and hopefully it doesn't sweep out these lows and then give us our movement before hitting this. But the reason I moved is I think that it's going to take this liquidity based off of how the higher time frames moving here. Now, this could be interesting if we actually get a closure above this candle. I think that would likely take us above these. Certainly above this one at 16. There it goes. Nasty. Nasty, nasty, nasty. $10 a.m. What do we got? Right, so this lines up with our SMDR that broke below this candle here. I think that's significant, this accumulation that happened at the highs. We took that 16 high, likely coming back down. Will be interesting to see if we get a movement back down to this area here, 507 or so. We're lining up with that imbalance. That's an aggressive trade to look for a movement back up into here. But points are points. $508 halves. Come on, market. Toying with people. Toying with people. You got that? Beautiful, Mikey. This is a nice violent movement coming in. That low being 26. So putting pretty heavy analysis on this area here. Also the midpoint of this area too. So we've got SNDR, you've got midpoint, you've got your pocket of this move on your 5 minute. But I need some sort of inducement in here. I think that you might get an aggressive trade out of there. But just be cautious. That's a nice sweep of that flat top. Barely into our SNDR. Didn't quite hit our pocket, unfortunately. This closes bearish. You might get an inducement sweep, but I can't justify this right now. Despite the possibility of this running. Really didn't like those equal lows for long. Now, the concern for taking a short, right? You've got some sort of structure forming here. We have accumulation manipulated, and now we're looking at this violent movement back up. Respecting imbalances, we probably take this high at 26. Yikes. Right, body closure inside of our pocket, also inside of the SNDR. There's our sweep, and away we go. Now this should dump, like looking for this low pretty quick, or at least a strong body closure off of this bar. Not really looking for sideways movement. Right now I'm looking at the 23.6 of 15. That's going to be my first exit. It's definitely got to fail here. There we go. I'm looking for these lows and we'll see what ends up happening. Right, so now I'm break even at 27. Right, but this cannot fail. Like, I don't want to see some major failure underneath this structural candle. Otherwise we might go higher and this just ends up being inducement. Like, I loved that push into there. I need to see continuation. If I see eagerness of unwillingness, this area here, this fractal from this high to that low, broke above this accumulation here. So it's an area where the market was responsible for not continuing this downward leg. So we got our body closure there, lovely. We've got to respect this area should we trade back up into it, but looking for these lows. Right, certainly these equal lows at 508.5. And time to go, like let's go. Right, and still looking for our pocket down here. I did like 92 initially, as you guys saw, but I think that the higher time frame failure, looking for this. Bum, 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 silly bum. You're in this, eh, Tom? Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. This area kind of lines up with that. I think that's aggressive. This hasn't broken this low yet. Getting violent reaction out of this. Right, so sweeping above this candle. If it sweeps and fails, and this, like, we don't really want to see a swing formed here. We want to see something similar to this. We're not really getting that. So I'm not wild about the reaction here. Whether we have to go above this or not. Right, so we put in a valid low. You might get a movement back down to take your position out if you don't want to deal with this. I do think it's going to come up. And that's only because of the strength and whereabouts it closed. I would have expected something similar to... what am I looking at? What am I looking at? Not really anything in there, unfortunately. My target was above the low and a bottom ticked me out and then turned around. Oh, you got out here with your short. All right. Hey, we love that, don't we? Mikey back in. All right. Looking for this high probably and then beyond. Right? And again, like, we're looking at this. That's a little violent. You probably have something a little bit better on the 5 minute that shows. My concern is this. Now, that's a very unassuming top, despite the failure, right? So, first, second, and then this. Not ideal. Not ideal. Right? Now, it's possible it could sweep and fail this. Right? But we're getting violent reactions from lower prices here. Which is not synonymous to me with higher time frame failure. Yeah. Yeah. I'd be very cautious shorting into anywhere from here to the high now. 100%. Right? If you were looking long, then this tap back in was gorgeous. But very violent. Of course, the legend himself is in it. Right? We increase our probability with this trade from the inducement that happened prior to, and then we had another sweep. Interesting to see where this ends up. I don't think that like this area breaks, we probably take this high. This area holds, we cap in here before probably going lower, personally. Right? This being your intermediate time frame area of interest. Right? Not really the follow through we're looking for. The accumulation, manipulation on your 5 minute time frame, beautiful. Just not really where I wanted to get long. The reason that you're seeing my mouse, by the way, come off and on, the Top Step live accounts on Top Step X, my Apex accounts are on NinjaTrader, and the PAs that I have on ETF are on Tradeovate. So I cannot trade off of TradingView. I dislike it. The fills are horrific. I don't know how you legends do it, but it's not something I'm interested in. Now, that was violent. Again, if you're really looking at longs, then you're looking at the retracements back in, ideally a sweep and then trade through. And if you're right, then you've got yourselves a beautiful entry. If you're wrong, then you get this knife through, and that's what stops are for, right? But you have to understand whereabouts you are in terms of direction, right? We've liquidated this SNDR now, trading back up. I don't think we have an imbalance in the 15, which is concerning for bearish PA. Right? If this bounces off of 22, I mean, this should trade, bounce off maybe. Who knows? Bum, 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 bum. Yeah, this is right. So we swept the highs, closed bearish, yes, follow through, swept and failed. We're tapping into this area. I don't think that the bulls are out of the woods yet, but this is definitely not what you want to see bearishly. Now, that said, that high, 29.75, 29.50, just closed at 30.50, making this a valid zone. Trading back into the midpoint of it. You might get an inducement fail, possibly, but the expectation of trading back into here is that at least until we fail above, we've got internal movement that's going to create new highs. Right, so push, attempt to sell off, fails, closes here. Not above this candle yet, but I think this is accumulating a lot of people. It's going to make a decision probably pretty quick, whether that's inside of here, we get some accumulation and then spike. We'll see. If you're a scalper, you're looking for signs of failure with an objective. So your objective in this case would be this high, unless you're putting a lot of emphasis on it sweeping the SMDR and failing. Right, which I am not because of how it's getting held up in here. Right, if this trades through, that's a potential failure of this candle for a scalp, and now we're looking for this high. If. I am long right now. I'm looking to take some off at this high and then see if we get our squeeze above this. And the main reason is because of what transpired here. Yes, change in order flow. You've got this movement here, broke, failed. We got our tap back in, which then failed. Tells me we have to go at least a little bit higher. Kicking and screaming the entire time. Kicking and screaming. You're seeing major defense of the midpoints of these candles. Not something you really want to see in lower time frame delivery. Still sitting long. People will be selling in here based off of the lethargic movement that we're seeing. And the concern would be this high at 33-ish. Not, or some sort of major failure that occurs off of a double top internally. But as it stands right now, there's no, there goes that high, right? So, let's go is right. This cannot fail here. Cannot fail here. $1,600 so far per account. Just a couple of trades. Lovely delivery so far. How are you guys doing? Bum, 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 bum. Obviously, Mikey's sitting pretty. Yeah. Yeah. Violent push. Could be a firefly, right? Like we're not looking at bearish candles going, ooh, shiny. Here we go. Right? But we are looking at the context. So this failure, strong push away, okay, but it's got to achieve something. We've got a lot of liquidity. Where's our protected low? Protected low is all the way down here. Yeah, that was a beautiful short. I will take that trade 90% of days. 90% of the time. With the 10% having nuance that I just can't trust it. How did Socio see the long from below after the push back down before seeing the 5-minute turn into such a big fail wick? He saw this. I mean, I'm not going to speak for him. He'll probably go over it later on when we do the stream. Accumulation, manipulation, failure, gone. Right? So what he was looking at was the 15-minute time frame failing underneath here inside of this range, looking to take possibly this high. Right? And then you got your 5-minute that ends up being failure here. We've got our strong push. And then we're looking at taking a retracement back in. This one. I'm going to take this off. That one's done its job. I think this failure here takes this low. But my concern as well is like, yeah, we're seeing this, beautiful, but we're also seeing some pretty big 3 drive patterns on the 5-minute here too. Now, if we continue to consolidate here, that would lead to building an SNDR to then run it. This to me is a little bit unclear now. I am still leaning more towards the short side, but thus far, it's not really giving us lots. Right? We've already ran this area that was responsible for breaking the consolidation. We have not broken the protected high here. We're looking at this internal structure. Right? And lethargic internal movement will lead to failure. Whether that failure is above this high or whether that's internal. And my concern right now is that this is major internal failure. in which case we're actually looking at something like this. And if this area respects, right, kind of spike down, sideways delivery, if this area fails, whether we're involved or not, if that area fails, then we go underneath both of these, in my opinion. So be forewarned. Be forewarned. If we get it at all. If we get it at all. Yeah, and I think we achieved our objective of the intermediate time frame one here. You could argue that, you know, we're looking at this, but I was drawing it from the 5 minute. So this wick being manipulation, right? If we drew it from here, well, now look what we got. Right, we've got our final objective. That's your 15-minute pocket. That's the last place. This area fails, and we go above this high. And we're seeing the offspring of that right now. Not anything into here. I'm going to take that off. You could argue that like if this stops here and then goes, I think that's more aggressive because this high has to achieve something specific for us to look at the retracement back in. This is actually making me look really silly here. This was perfect. Right? So you have sort of this, like the takeaway from it is this, right? You've got the lethargic movement we talked about. What else do we have? We have the fractal nature of price. How lethargic is this? Right? All of which could be doing this. And then this movement from this high should be violent. Violent. SNDR held. Pocket held. We'll see, we'll see, we'll see. What wombo do I have at 480? I've got from this low here. In fairness, like, I liked this. The problem with it, you could probably argue here, I suppose, is that usually when I'm drawing them, I like to have them not have my midpoint with just above areas of liquidity. Because if we continue lower, which I'm leaning on, we take both these lows. Right? And you could argue this lines up with this area that's shoved us higher, and I think that's fair. But I'm actually drawing it from this low here, despite this being manipulation. And you could argue that maybe we could draw it from here, and I think that's fair too. Right? This being manipulation underneath this low. I think that's valid. I'm going to leave it like that. And why don't we mark up this low as well. Nasty. Put that back up. You might only get it to here. And I think that's fair. You've got a little SNDR in here, but understand what probability and how aggressive this trade would be if you're looking at it. Right? This area, while being a beautiful failure, this did not even take this low. All this did was clear out internal structure. So the objective of this very well could be to trade up to here in the mid-20s. This is extremely aggressive. I'm not going to take a trade from here personally, but I can understand the validity of shorting into this SNDR and Wombo here. So I'll leave it on my chart. Yikes. Now what? Yep. Let's see what we got here. I think the people did short this, at least algorithmically. If we get major failure in here, they'll probably just run. That would be your continuation one, and you can kind of treat them similar as imbalances, right? If your lower time frame one holds, then you don't want to be going long against that. That's continuation of move, of purpose, right? And it'll allow people to mitigate positions often. If it spikes through, then it comes back down to where the volume is. You might get something up in here at the mid-20s, right? And you would be leaning on the change in order flow that occurred here for that. 2 seconds to the next half-hour candle for you guys that pay attention to those things. Right, so where's the liquidity? It's above this high, 27.5. Getting some lethargic movement in here. Expansive bullish candles. Expansive bullish candles now into our SNDR. Let's go. And now finally, we are looking for this low, that low, and then this one. And we better get some follow through from this. Right, your 23.6 is at 1075. Let's go, let's go. Oddly respecting this one despite tapping into our higher time frame one, which you do see often. You do see often. It will respect the one in the middle that should be respected. And yet, the high will end up being tapping into the algorithmic point. Hasn't quite hit our area of interest, which I think aligns with this fractal here. I think that there's a lot of volume in this, even if we do decide to not go lower as intended. This is nasty business. Again, follow through. Not really what we wanted to see so far, which tells us it might have to reach higher. Maybe it does have to take this high at 27s. Or it could just be failing in here. I would have wanted this candle to close bearish, that's for sure. I would have wanted that candle closing bearish. I don't get everything I want all the time. I don't get everything I want all the time. Right? But I am break even at 23.50. And if it comes up and takes me out to the tick like yesterday, then so be it. And it looks like it's going to. Bum, 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 bum. There it goes. And now what? Not really conducive to lower prices, at least so far. I do think we still trade down into here, but we need to see some sort of failure above this first. Right, so that was good for, what, 10 points or so, but not the move I wanted. Not the move that I wanted. You sound like young ICT. I have no idea what young ICT sounds like. And I don't, is that, people either love him or hate him. For some reason, he's very either very well liked or very disliked in the community. And I don't think anybody can suggest that he hasn't made quite the impact. So I'll ask if that's, hopefully that's a compliment. Sitting long after we validated low, okay. Mikey's stalking up here. I think we're creating a bit of a barbecue as well. I think we are creating a bit of a barbecue. I would like down here for a long if we get failure into here. Right? But if we get more internal failure, similar to what happened here, internal failure tells me it's nasty business. Definitely worth a shot, right? I agree with you 100%. Right? There's definitely two ways to be playing this in ranges. Love it. Right? This 15-minute, despite all the levels on this chart. Right? That's nasty. We're just not getting the follow through on either side, which means that people will be quick to take their shorts off in here, and people will be quick to go long and take their longs off in here. So it provides nice opportunity for everybody, I think. I do think we go above this high at 25.75. It'll be interesting to see. If we get internal failure, then this holds. If we don't, then this gets deleted and away we go. But we need to see that failure first. Are we green today, lads? How are we feeling? What's going on? Talk to me. Reminder that we're giving away a whole bunch of take profit accounts. Now that's not going to be on YouTube. That's not going to be on YouTube. That will be, we're opening up the Discord for free today, for sure. And the marble races will be at Post Market, but we'll be streaming all day, calling some bangers. Adding on dips, turning hair gray. Yep. Yep. $1. Pardon? $1. There goes our high. And you guys away? I'm just gonna watch this. Hopefully you guys are green and we just get this bang, bang, bang. Thank you. If we are gonna get it, it's going to line with the 1050 macro. TP1. Nice, David. You were long as well. Beautiful. 3 or for 4, Wombo pre-market sitting in a long for what seems like forever. All right. Love the conviction, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. 41.25, okay. What do we have going on here? This is drawn from that, but I mean, if we were drawing it from there, I think this has done its job personally, unless we get internal failure, which will be intermediate. We might have to take these highs before we come down, if we're going to come down at all today. And if we do, it would be lovely if we built an internal SNDR here to risk off of, and then we at least have some structure to determine whether or not our bias really shifts or not. ES has gone lower on this NQ move up. Yeah. I think I've looked at an ES chart once this year, and it's December. I know there's 1,000,001 strategies and whatnot, but sweep this 500 hard. Oh my. This is no structure. This, yeah. Don't know. Green small, but traveling. I'm jealous. Hopefully somewhere tropical. Hopefully somewhere tropical. Right? So you get accumulation, right? Death, rally. Cool. We can get on board with that. We like this. We get accumulation here. Rally. Gone. What's our expectation of this? Right? Now, it hasn't traded back down to this area. You could argue that we're actually inside of our pocket. Well, if you drew it from here, I suppose we are. But this is very unclear. So if you are hunting longs and you are long, then you don't want to see things like this. You want to see areas that are responsible for breaking things, right? Not failing internally and then coming down and now going, well, maybe it's going to do it from here. Well, it just tried it from here. And then 1 out of every 10 times it does this. And you're like, well, see? No, I don't. I don't see. What I see is this. This is what I see. And I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Right? This is the only area that I wanted from this fractal which aligned with this being manipulation. You may very well get a trade out of here, but this makes me nervous, right? And as I tell people quite often, success is a function of resilience, right? You'll get a lot of collective wisdom in the trading world. It's okay to be wrong. It's not okay to stay wrong, right? Cool. We can throw out quotes. That's lovely. What do quotes mean? If you can't attach them to your own personal experience to make decisions or better, consistent decisions out of it, then that's useless, right? Consistency in your trading is a function of staying out of trouble. You cannot change my mind. You could have 200K green days, 5 days a week, 10 days in a row, and then blow it all in one day, not staying out of trouble. That doesn't matter if it's $200 green days that you're taking. It doesn't matter if it's $200,000 green days you're taking. It's not relevant. And I think that we've all heard stories of hedge funds that have gone under following that exact same thing. Nobody is absolved from that theory. Period. So you might be studying the Wombo and you've got some pretty phenomenal systems, right? But pair that with structure and narrative. This I've wanted to go short or die the entire morning, and yet I took a long in here, right? I took a short in here. I took a short in here actually as well. Right? This one was beautiful. This short was beautiful. Haven't quite gotten what I want yet. Our ability to pivot. Our ability to pivot is what makes or breaks us, right? So I'm not seeing what I want short, so it's very unclear. Therefore, any shorts that I'm taking them off at my initial targets. I wanted this to take this low and go further very quickly. I didn't get that, so I'm pivoting. Right? People will see these. Right? This aligned perfectly with the fractal we were talking about. There's another, what, 10, 15 points? This is scalp nation, if that's your strategy. You might be swinging for the fences for these highs. You're really not really getting what you want either. Violent movements down. These violent movements down aren't breaking structure. Right? So both sides are eating unless you're swinging and then holding to get break even. And that to me is nonsense. Pay yourself. Pay yourself. This is your third attempt here. We saw how well 3 attempts worked here, but it didn't break order flow. You got equal lows here, 275. This is going to be nasty one way or the other. Personally, looking short. Personally. But this is building a lovely... The problem with the barbecue, usually you get something like this. You don't get internal sweep that then breaks. Builds liquidity, internal sweep that then breaks. We're clearing liquidity out in this scenario. That makes me very nervous. Right? Your 5-minute is clearing liquidity, right? Your 15-minute is actually clearing liquidity as well. So just a word of caution for you guys that are looking longs. I hate to talk you out of them. I don't want to be the guy that's like, don't go long in here and then, you know, you're missing out on 20 points, 15 points, 40 points, whatever. There is ways to go long in here. Just if you're looking for up here or this high, you might get this high. But this is not the ideal sort of conditions for it. If you're in a range, people will be looking at buying in here. Well, probably buying in like the third, so let's say this, right? And trading up to the midpoint of the range. All right, so not getting this that I want. We're getting Your 3-drive failure, it's got to break order flow again. We've now got more internal movement confirmation below this candle, but still inside of a range. Still inside of a range. Obviously that SNDR violated miserably. You want death. And death would sweep these, and you don't want to see it fail underneath this. You want gone. You want, we're done accumulating. See ya. We've got 1 minute until a major macro. I don't take trades based off of them, but the analysis. The analysis is something else. Right? In fact, if you would have waited for the wedge pattern, the 3 attempts to rally that cannot, 1, 2, 3, that's 2 major trades you would have had today. Not even considering the longs or any price action related trades or even this one, which I think was very aggressive considering this high couldn't put in a new low. I think this was probably the best trade of the morning so far. You could argue this one. I think that's fair. There goes our equal lows. I don't think this is stopping. Very cautious about this area now, but we have a lot of accumulation in here, right? So we've taken those equal lows. Our low of the day, or at least the morning, is 97.75. 2 ticks. 2 ticks. Did anybody ride anything short down? Beautiful. I was too busy yapping. I would have loved to have taken that. There's no reason I shouldn't have. Beautiful. Beautiful follow through. Let's go. Beautiful, 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 lads. Boom. Are you not entertained? Even in this range mess, nobody should be surprised with this. Nobody should be surprised with this. Now, whether this sweeps and fails and we get something really nasty here, we've now cleared out everything inside of this range. So despite my personal opinion, this could do this and then die. And what would that do? That would clear out all the early longs, then clear out all the shorts, right? Yes, some were cleared out in here, in fairness. But if we're looking at second distribution, this should not really hold. This should not really hold. So we'll see what ends up happening with this area, but this is nasty business with no bull bars, right? No real attempts to rally in here either. So you're kind of looking for like a little bit, well, I wouldn't look for cheat code entries in this range personally. What's more likely is we get a couple of inside bars and then expansion. You might get manipulation in that as well. But love to see you guys grab this short. Love it. 55, yeah. Sure. Hopefully you guys are at least profiting or staying out of trouble based off of this analysis. That's the value we really want to provide. Now you could be looking at this going, well, you know, do we get a trade back up to this? I mean, that's possible. I think that's possible. You might get a movement out of here, but I mean, whoo, I'd be nervous sweeping all these out and failing hard and then trading back up in the air. I'd be nervous, but 517 aligning with this fractal. I'd be more inclined to suggest we get a little bit of continuation play, which would be something like this. Here at 507, maybe just some sort of rejection if we're going to really continue lower. 507 really holds, right? And we fail above this candle, but that would be like something literally violent from here and then gone. And then in which case we go underneath this low and probably quite a bit lower. Right? But range bound PA, I think it's very, very risky to be shorting here personally. Right? But this would be an area I'd be considering. Right? Now, the interesting thing about the Wombo and continuations, right, for leveling up purposes and whatnot, is like you have to take into account, because this essentially is looking at it from like a scalping point of view, right? And what I mean by that is if you're scalping, you have to make extremely quick decisions on the fly, and it's likely lower time frame narrative that's finalizing itself and then dumping. Right? Personally, I'm actually avoiding shorting in here. One reason is because I actually have to drive in 5 minutes. And I'd implore you guys, I think there's a link to our Discord in the live description. I don't know if Mikey's hopping on immediately afterwards or whatnot. But the other reason is because I'm concerned about the failure down here. I want to see something pretty conclusive. I can understand, like the other theory is like, you've got this here. This is clearly a higher time frame move. The question is this manipulation? So this might, if we get inducement, we'd get a candle like this. You're then looking for a short, which would take us back down to here, and then likely beyond, in my opinion. Right? So this should tap into this imbalance here, and then you've got something like this, which would then trade lower, and then you might get a little bounce up here to continue on like that. A GoFundMe. You know what? I actually should look into a driver. I'm probably losing a decent amount of money. But I'll be honest, I also love driving them, despite missing out on some beautiful trades. This actually looks like the market's drawing it from here, at least so far. Ruh-roh. What's going on here? 2.5 minutes. 2.5 minutes. What time was that? 10:45? 10:50? Shocker. What goes on now then? Right? And if you're looking at it, you probably have this at 500s. Maybe, but I think it's very aggressive looking long after this higher time frame delivery, despite this valid low, which we've kind of got a bunch of trades off of, so I can understand the theory of going long in here. If that's what you guys see, then great. Double sweeping into an imbalance, into the manipulation leg, movement away. I think we go above this into it, personally. But the problem with that is these higher time frame movements, you get these kind of attempts to rally, but we just grind lower before death because the higher time frame's got somewhere to be. One minute. What do we get? Not wild about that low. Oops. Not wild about that low. Right. So 82.5, still a decent area, pretty good inducement. But the reason we would take this is if we were expecting it to trade all the way back up to the mid-20s. And I think if this area holds, we go past the mid-20s. Yeah, we'll see you guys in the room in a bit. Yeah, cautious of longs for sure. Also cautious of shorts. If you get a hold of something, make sure you guys are paying yourselves. And we'll see you guys in about an hour inside if you're there. Would love to see you guys that aren't part of the Discord yet. Bye for now.